Hello and welcome to Mysterious Realities. We would love to hear what you think about today's case and any suggestions of cases you wish to see us cover in future episodes. We would also really appreciate it if you could like the episode and subscribe to our channel. It really makes a huge difference. Now, sit back, relax, dim your lights and get ready for the mysterious case of the Rendlesham incident. The Rendlesham Forest incident was a famous sighting of unexplained lights near Rendlesham Forest, in Suffolk, England in late December of 1980, which included a claim of an unidentified flying object landing in the forest. These events took place just outside Royal Air Force Woodbridge, which at the time, was used by the United States Air Force, American military personnel, including Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, claimed to see things they described as a UFO sighting. The reportings have been described as the most famous case of UFO events to have been witnessed in the United Kingdom. It is often compared to the Roswell UFO incident in the United States and is sometimes referred to as Britain's Roswell. The British Ministry of Defence stated that the event posed no threat to national security, and therefore, it was never investigated as a security matter. Furthermore, skeptics explain the sightings as a simple matter of misinterpretation of a series of nocturnal lights, such as a fireball, the Orfordness Lighthouse and even bright stars. At around 3 in the morning on the 26th of December, a military security patrol near the east gate of RAF Woodbridge, claimed to have seen lights in the sky, seemingly descending into the nearby Rendlesham Forest. Astronomers attribute these lights to have been a piece of natural debris seen burning up in the atmosphere, as a fireball over southern England at that time. U.S. military servicemen initially thought that it was a downed aircraft, so they decided to investigate. However, upon entering the forest, and according to Halt's memo, they saw what they described as a glowing object. It was metallic in appearance, with colored lights. When they attempted to approach the object, they reported that it appeared to move through the trees, and the animals on a nearby farm went into a frenzy. Sergeant Jim Peniston would later claim to have encountered a craft of unknown origin while in the forest. However, there was no public mention of this at the time, and nor has there been corroboration of this from other witnesses. An hour later the U.S. military informed the local police, who attended the scene, but they reported that the only lights they could see were those from the Orfordness Lighthouse, which was situated some miles away on the coast. After dawn, American servicemen returned to the small clearing near the eastern edge of the forest. Here they claimed to have found 3 small impressions on the ground. They were of a triangular pattern. They also reported burn marks and broken branches on nearby trees. At 10:30, local police were called out again. This time it was to see the impressions, which they thought could have been made by an animal. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt visited the site with several military servicemen in the early hours of the 28th December. During this visit they took radiation readings within the triangle of depressions and in the surrounding area using a standard military radiation survey meter. They recorded 0.03 milliroentgens per hour, however, in other regions they detected 0.03 to 0.04 milliroentgens per hour, around the background level. Furthermore, they detected a similar small burst over half a mile away from the landing site. Halt recorded the events on a cassette recorder. It was during this investigation that a flashing light was seen across the field to the east, in line with the farmhouse, as the witnesses had seen on the first night. The Orfordness Lighthouse is visible further to the east in the same line of sight. According to Halt's memo, 3 star-like lights were seen in the sky, 2 to the north and 1 to the south, about 10 degrees above the horizon. Halt said that the brightest of these hovered for 2 to 3 hours and seemed to beam down a stream of light from time to time. The first piece of primary evidence that was made available to the public was a memorandum written to the Ministry of Defence by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt. The Halt memo became publicly available in the United States under the Freedom of Information Act in 1983. Dated 13th of January 1981 and was titled Unexplained Lights. The 2-week delay between the incident and the report might account for errors in the dates and times given, The memo was not classified in any way. David Clark, a consultant to the National Archives, has investigated the background of this memo and the reaction to it at the Ministry of Defense. His interviews with the personnel involved confirmed the superficial nature of the investigation made by the Ministry of Defense, and failed to find any evidence for any other reports on the incident made by the Americans other than the Halt memo. Halt has since gone on record as saying he believes that he witnessed an extraterrestrial event that was then covered up. In 1984, a copy of a tape that chronicles Halt's investigations was released to UFO researchers by Colonel Sam Morgan, who had by then become Halt's superior. The tape is a real-time record of the investigation in the forest. It included taking radiation readings, the sighting of the flashing light between trees, and star-like objects that hovered and twinkled. 13 years later, researcher James Easton managed to obtain the original witness statements made by those involved in the first night's sightings. Witness, Ed Cabansag, stated, "We figured the lights were coming from past the forest since nothing was visible when we passed through the woody forest. We would see a glowing near the beacon light, but as we got closer, we found it to be a lit-up farmhouse. We got to a vantage point where we could determine that what we were chasing was only a beacon light off in the distance." Another participant, John Burroughs, also stated, "We could see a beacon going around, so we went towards it. We followed it for about 2 miles before we could see it was coming from a lighthouse." Burroughs reported a noise like a woman was screaming and that you could hear the farm animals making a lot of noises. Halt heard the same noises 2 nights later. Such noise could have been made by muntjac deer in the forest, which are known for their loud, shrill bark when alarmed. In June 2010, a then-retired Colonel Halt signed a notarized affidavit, in which he again stated what had happened, then said he believed the event to be extraterrestrial and that it had been covered up by both the UK and US governments. However, there were contradictions between his affidavit and the facts as recorded in Halt's original memo and tape recording. Also, in 2010, Base Commander Colonel Ted Conrad provided a statement about the incident in which he stated that we saw nothing that resembled Lieutenant Colonel Halt's descriptions either in the sky or on the ground, and we had people in position to validate Halt's narrative, but none of them could. Conrad criticized Halt for the claims in his affidavit, saying he should be ashamed and embarrassed by his allegation that his country and Britain both conspired to deceive their citizens over this issue. He knows better. Furthermore, Conrad disputed the testimony of Sergeant Jim Peniston, who had claimed to have touched an alien spacecraft. Conrad stated that when he interviewed Peniston at the time, he had not mentioned any such occurrence. Conrad also suggested that the entire incident could have been a hoax. An Omni article from 1983 reported that Colonel Ted Conrad, the base commander, recalls 5 Air Force policemen spotted lights from what they thought was a small plane descending into the forest. 2 of the men tracked the object on foot and came upon a large tripod-mounted craft. It had no windows but was studded with brilliant red and blue lights. Each time the men came within 50 yards of the ship, Conrad relates, it levitated 6 feet in the air and backed away. They followed it for almost an hour through the woods and across a field until it took off at phenomenal speed. Acting on the reports made by his men, Colonel Conrad began a brief investigation of the incident in the morning. He went into the forest and located a triangular pattern ostensibly made by the tripod legs. He interviewed 2 of the eyewitnesses and concludes, "Those lads saw something, but I don't know what it was." Suffolk police reported that were called to the scene on the night of the first sighting and again the following morning but found nothing unusual. They stated that the only lights visible were from the Orford Lighthouse. The police stated the indentations in the ground was likely to be from animals. The Suffolk Constabulary file on the incident was released in 2005 under the UK's Freedom of Information Act and is accessible through their website. The file also includes a letter dated 28 July 1999 from Inspector Mike Topless, who stated that one of the constables who attended the previous night returned during the day in case he had missed something. Inspector Topless reported there was nothing to be seen and he remains unconvinced that the occurrence was genuine. The immediate area was swept by powerful light beams from a landing beacon at RAF Bentwaters and the Orfordness Lighthouse. I know from personal experience that at night, in certain weather and cloud conditions, these beams were very pronounced and certainly caused strange visual effects. Talk of a substantial Ministry of Defense file on the incident led to claims of a cover-up. Some interpreted this as part of a larger pattern of information suppression concerning the true nature of unidentified flying objects, by both the United States and British governments. However, when the file was released in 2001, it turned out to consist mostly of internal correspondence and responses to inquiries from the public. The lack of any in-depth investigation in the publicly released documents is consistent with the Ministry of Defence's earlier statement that they never took the case seriously. Whether or not the incident is real or a hoax, interest is still extremely high with this case. It is likely that lights were seen in the sky above Rendlesham, but as to whether they came from a man-made lighthouse, or an extraterrestrial is down to personal preference. It is of course difficult to rely solely on statements of witness. However, equally, can we trust our governments to release sensitive documents of this nature? Under a Freedom of Information request, the public have no way of knowing whether all documents have been released, or even if the documents released are originals. Whatever your view, the events at Rendlesham are still a popular subject, with investigators and interested groups still searching for evidence to finally confirm the question of whether Earth is the only planet with life. Have you been to Rendlesham? What do you think was seen? Have you had a UFO experience? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our channel.